The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media.
Sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Have you ever wondered, why does false information spread faster? Is it because people are just stupid? No. The real reason why they spread faster is because they're better designed for your brain. And modern social media platforms, they amplify these psychological mechanisms at enormous scale. Now, in 2018, researchers from MIT analyzed over 120,000 news stories that were shared on what was Twitter then by millions of users. And they came to the conclusion that false stories were about 70% more likely to be retweeted. They not only spread faster, they spread further. Why? Well, because false stories were more likely to contain surprising claims, emotionally charged language, simple, dramatic narratives. In other words, misinformation spreads quickly. Why? Because it is optimized for the brain's emotional systems. This is toxic physiology. With all the chaos that's happening in today's world, there is one thing that will certainly be happening alongside it, and that is propaganda. Propaganda works by exploiting human psychology. Propaganda rarely convinces people through careful argument. It works by bypassing logic entirely. Instead of persuading your rational mind, it activates something much older in the brain, your emotional threat system. And once that system switches on, your brain stops asking, is this true? It starts asking, is this dangerous? Understanding that difference is the key to understand how propaganda works. For us to understand propaganda, we have to understand our own physiology. And I'm going to simplify this as much as possible. Your brain processes information through two broad systems. The first system is fast, emotional, and automatic. And this will include structures like the amygdala, which constantly scans for potential threats. The second system is slower and analytical, and this involves the prefrontal cortex, which evaluates evidence, it weighs possibilities, and it thinks logically. In calm situations, information can move through the rational system first. You hear a claim, you analyze the evidence, you decide whether or not it makes sense. However, when you're under fear or stress, your brain flips its normal order. Emotion goes first, logic comes later. The order reverses. The amygdala activates first. It triggers the brain's stress response, also known as the HPA axis, and I have talked about this in detail over here. Now, once those stress hormones rise, the brain shifts into survival mode. And in survival mode, the brain prioritizes speed over accuracy. You're trying to survive here. You don't care about the real story. You don't want clarity. You don't want context. Who cares about that? I just need to know the information that I need to know. Who is my enemy? How do I beat them? That's it. That's what you care about. Okay? What does this mean for you? It means that emotional signals can bypass careful reasoning. And this is where propaganda becomes extremely powerful. Fear doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how you think. Psychological research shows that emotions significantly influence how we process information. Studies on emotional decision-making have found that when people feel fear, they become more sensitive to perceived threats, and they are more likely to rely on simple mental shortcuts rather than careful analysis. So, fear does something important inside the brain. It narrows attention. Your focus shifts towards your perceived threat. Your body becomes physiologically activated. Your heart rate increases, your breathing comes faster, your stress hormone rises, and at the same time, the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is the region responsible for nuance, judgment, and critical thinking, it decreases. So, what does that mean? Well, the more emotionally activated a person becomes, the less analytical processing actually occurs. Now, this is where propaganda is key, Because propaganda doesn't try to make you think, no, 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 no. Propaganda tries to make you feel. This is why propaganda often focuses on messages that evoke fear, anger, disgust. These emotions travel quickly through the threat circuits of the brain, and once those circuits are active, people become far more receptive to simple narratives. Why is that important? Well, when the brain is under stress, it prefers simple explanation. Instead of analysing complex systems, it looks for clear stories. A hero, a villain, a victim. That's what you are looking for. And propaganda takes advantage of this by offering narrative shortcuts. Rather than presenting complicated realities, it frames events as good people versus evil people, or us versus them.
If you are the unvaccinated, you are the problem.
You're the problem.
Condemn them, shame them, blame them.
The only people that you can blame are the unvaccinated.
Frankly, we can't trust the unvaccinated.
They should not be part of polite society.
These simplified narratives reduce the mental effort required to process information. And when people are already overwhelmed with information, simple stories spread much faster than complex explanations. Now, another powerful mechanism that propaganda relies on is repetition. Your brain is highly sensitive to familiarity. If you repeat a claim often enough, it begins to feel like it's true. There was a study in the 1970s where participants were shown a series of statements. Now, some of these statements were repeated multiple times, others were shown only once. Later on, participants were asked, how believable does each statement seem? And the results were clear. Statements that had been repeated were consistently rated as more believable, even though they'd been warned that some might be false. They didn't sit and think, hang on a second, which one's false? No. Because it's been repeated often enough, it must be true. So psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. Now, familiarity becomes a shortcut for truth. This is why propaganda messages are often short, simple, and repeated constantly.
No one is safe.
No one is safe. No one is safe.
No one is safe.
Nobody's safe.
No one is safe.
Nobody is safe.
This is a post-9/11 axiom. Safer, but not yet safe.
No one is safe. No one is safe.
The goal is not necessarily to prove something. No. The goal is to make the idea feel familiar. And when it feels familiar, you're more likely to believe that it is true. Now, propaganda also exploits another powerful human psychology, okay? Your identity. I want you to understand something. Humans are social creatures. We organize ourselves into groups, whether that's political group, national groups, religious group, cultural groups, even gender groups. And instead of presenting ideas as neutral claims, propaganda often ties them to group loyalty. For example, if you care about your country, you believe this. Or statements like, only traitors question this. Now, once a belief becomes connected to identity, rejecting it no longer feels like disagreeing with a claim. It feels like betraying the group. And at that point, logical arguments become much less effective because the issue is no longer about evidence. It becomes about belonging. So, why? Why are they doing this to us? Well, propaganda doesn't just shape opinions. It benefits system. It quietly stabilizes power.
The only positive thing out of this is we should be able to manufacture a lot of vaccines, and
Nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
you don't have a choice.
As long as not everybody is vaccinated, nobody will be safe.
Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population. So
Get the fucking vaccine.
You need to get vaccinated, and if you don't, you are going to die.
During the Cold War, both the US and the Soviet Union used propaganda to frame the other side as an existential threat. In the US, messaging frequently emphasized the dangers of communism. Some of that messaging reflected real geopolitical conflict. Fear-based narratives also helped justify major political decisions. People were much more likely to accept large military spending, higher taxes, if they think that they are fighting an impending doom. They're more likely to agree to expansion of intelligence agencies. They're more likely to agree to foreign interventions abroad. they're more likely to agree to changes to the constitutions, to lose some of their rights. During the period known as McCarthyism, accusations of communist sympathy were even used to attack political opponents within the US. So fear did more than just mobilize the public. It stabilized political power by directing attention towards an external enemy. And boy, oh boy, do we love an external enemy.
Jennifer Aniston is cutting non-vaccinated people out of her life.
They should be removed from the hospital.
Those who refuse to be vaccinated should be denied health care.
Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy, rest in peace, Wheezy.
I want you guys to do something. Look at the war that's happening today between Israel and US and Iran and have a think about the type of propaganda that's been sent in both directions. Have a look at things like simple wording, repetition, and identity politics. Propaganda works partly because systems benefit from populations that respond emotionally rather than analytically. They don't want you guys using your brains. No. They want you guys using your fists.
Idiots who think that they can do their own research.
Don't do any of your own research.
Doing your own research is associated with conspiracy theory circles. They can have serious consequences. You should get prison time for even questioning the vaccines.
Can we all stop saying, I need to do my own research?
That phrase, do your own research, 4 words. 4 little words that are hurting America. Doing your own research hurts America! Everybody has a supercomputer in their hand that empowers them to do their own research, and that's the problem.
So, what have we learned today? Propaganda doesn't need to win the argument. It just needs to win the sequence. It's not trying to win debates. It only needs to activate the right emotional circuits at the right time. Fear activates the threat system. Simple narratives replace complex analysis. Repetition makes ideas feel familiar. Identity turns beliefs into loyalty signals. Once those mechanisms are in place, well, by the time logic arrives, it's often way too late. So, you can't turn off propaganda, but you can notice it. Understanding these mechanisms does not make anyone immune to propaganda. No one is completely immune to fear, identity, or repetition. You can't help it, okay? Propaganda has been studied using psychology, and the mechanism has been practiced and perfected. But it helps you recognize the moments when your emotions are being activated before your reasoning has had time to speak. And subhanAllah, in Islam, we always say when news comes to you, verify it before you react. And that's an Islamic principle. The moment you see something and you question, what is this making me believe, is where critical thinking begins. You start activating your prefrontal cortex. Your emotions start going down. Propaganda works on the level of nervous systems, not just opinions. If you understand the physiology of propaganda, you stop being an easy target for it. And when you learn how your own system reacts to fear, repetition, and identity, you become much harder to manipulate. You cannot control the messages that circulate in the world. You can't control it. Okay? But you can understand what those messages are doing to your nervous system. Remember what I said. A dysregulated nervous system makes you easier to control. This is Toxic Physiology, where we explain the science behind the chaos. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.